Before we get rolling in today's video, if you hate injuries, go ahead, hit that thumbs up icon down below. What's going on, everybody? You're watching New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. In today's show, we're going to talk about the latest news coming out of Giants minicamp. We got injury news on Adoree Jackson. Then we're going to close out the show talking about Sterling Shepard, because he has looked pretty good at minicamp. And speaking of minicamp, it's over for the New York Giants. They practiced twice. They had 3 available practices. But Brian Daboll decided, who needs a third minicamp practice when you're going to have a team cookout? So a team cookout for tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a video on that, see who's on the grill and who is smoking stogies. We have good injury news at the back end of the show, some bad news at the front. According to Dan Duggan of The Athletic, he is reporting that there was a brief scare late in practice on Wednesday. He said Adoree Jackson appeared to injure his left ankle while contesting a deep pass to Paris Campbell. After getting tended to by trainers, Jackson walked back to the sideline, dapping up Daboll on the way. A dap with Daboll would be pretty damn crisp. I feel like he's got a good handshake game. Pause. That might have sounded a little bit weird. Hopefully, though, it's not too serious with Adoree Jackson. I don't want to call Adoree Jackson an injury-prone player, but it always seems that every year, whether it's with the Giants or with the Titans earlier in his career, the injury bug just continues to follow him around. And I'm not worried about an ankle injury in the middle of June, as we're still months away from week 1 and 6 weeks away from training camp getting back together. But I got to admit, injuries in the offseason absolutely stink. You almost feel like when you're practicing against yourself, injuries should be turned off, and that's how I like to play Madden, because I like to have my best players on the football field. But I am a little worried about Adoree Jackson, his continued history of just being nicked up. Adoree Jackson has missed 29 football games in the last 4 seasons. And that's not good by any stretch of the imagination. And it stinks because he is good and a really, really good cornerback. And in the last 2 years with the New York Football Giants, he's been their best cornerback, and when he got hurt last year, their defense took a steep decline in production, and they were not even nearly the same type of group that they were when he played. In the 23 games that Jackson has played with the New York Giants over the past 2 seasons, he's allowed a completion percentage of just 51.8. He's allowed just 32.6 yards per game. He's allowed 4 touchdowns. He has 1 interception, 15 pass breakups, and when targeted, he allows a passer rating of just 75.4. Adoree Jackson may not be a lockdown number 1 corner, but there are 32 teams that if he were to be healthy, they would love to have him in their defensive back group. And I can make the argument that Adoree Jackson may be the single most important player on the Giants defense this year, because outside of him, you don't really have anybody that has a lot of NFL success at the cornerback position. We saw last year when Fabian Moreau had to step into that cornerback 1 spot that the defense got worse. You love Adoree Jackson at CB1. I think the rook, Deontay Banks or Tay Banks, whatever you want to call him, will be CB2. But if Jackson gets hurt, that means a rookie's going to have to be your CB1. You're probably going to have second-year player Cordell Flott be your CB2. Darnay Holmes remains in the slot, and you just don't really have that much NFL experience on this depth chart outside of Adoree Jackson, and that's why I think, especially in a Wink Martindale defense, that Jackson could have a strong case made for him as the most important player. So let's hope that this ankle injury just comes and goes. He's fine and ready to go for training camp, and he's going to play all 17 games. If that happens, the Giants are going to be a damn good football team this year. But you're looking at the Giants cornerback depth chart right there, and I want to ask this question before we shift to Sterling Shepard, the longest tenured Giant. What is your confidence level in the Giants cornerbacks going into the season? Scale it from 1 to 10. 1 being you're not confident at all. They need to go out and make another move. 10 being you're confident and you're ride or dying with this group, and they're going to be a good group for the Giants this year. Scale your confidence for me down below. And if we get any more news about Adoree Jackson or any other injury news or rumors or anything comes out, we're going to put out a video on this channel. We are 3 subscribers away from 29,000 subs on the channel, so I'm asking for a favor. If you love the Giants and you want content every day, all summer long, hit that big red subscribe button right now. So we got the bad injury news out of the way with Adoree Jackson. How about a little feel-good story today for the longest tenured Giant, Sterling Shepard. Shepard spoke to the media at Minicamp yesterday and said he is ahead of schedule with his ACL rehab. This is the full quote from Shep. He said, "I'm right on schedule where I wanted to be, maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule." So that's always good. I'm just trying to take it day by day and just focus on getting back to 100%. My goal is to be ready for the season. So whatever that takes is what I'm going to try to do. But I'm also not going to rush it. You got to get that time, and I'm not feeling right, then that's just what it's going to be. And this is great news for the Giants, but also Sterling Shepard. Shepard has always been a player that I have just been fond of. I like the work ethic. I like the pride that he wears the blue New York Giants helmet with. He's the longest tenured Giant. He's someone I respect. And I love the fact that he's getting healthy, because it stinks when you see players continuously hurt. And it's just non-contact injury after non-contact injury. And I've said it before, it almost felt like Sterling Shepard's body gave up on him. And that stinks. But man, the videos that are surfacing from Giants minicamp, Sterling Shepard looks really, really good. You can go see those videos over on my Twitter. I retweeted them all over on my Twitter, at @MarshallGreen_. You can click that link down below. But man, there's videos of him running routes on air, to be fair. No defense in sight, but he is quick off the line of scrimmage. You're seeing the burst. He's getting in and out of his cuts, and he just looks sharp and crisp. I don't want to say he looks 100%, but he looks like a guy that's going to be ready to rock and roll when week one comes. But the thing is, when it comes to week one, will Sterling Shepard be on the Giants roster? He's going to have to battle, and he's going to have to do it in training camp, and I think he may even have to play in the preseason. I could see a world where we have the season start and Sterling Shepard is on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, and the Giants are able to then replace him, or more so have a placeholder in that wide receiver depth chart as Shepard continues to get healthy. The reason I think he's going to have to battle to make this roster at this wide receiver spot is because there's a lot of names and a lot of bodies that really already have guaranteed spots. When you look at this depth chart, you know Isaiah Hodgins is going to make the roster. You know Wan'Dale Robinson is going to make the roster. Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell, they signed contracts this offseason. Multi-year contracts for Slayton, 1 year for Campbell, so they're both going to make the roster. That's 4 guys already. Jalen Hyatt is 100% going to make this roster. That's 5 spots right there. And I didn't name Sterling Shepard or Jamison Crowder or Colin Johnson or Bryce Ford-Wheaton or Jeff Smith, who has looked really good, and he's a special team specialist. And you can never forget about David Sills, the best friend of Daniel Jones. It's going to be a battle, and we're going to talk about who Sterling Shepard, I think, is directly going to battle when it comes to training camp and preseason to make this roster around the corner. But first, I got an awesome deal for all of the real ones out there. If you're not a real one, you're not going to be able to get this deal. But if you are a real one, and you go to chatsports.com/Giants hat combo, you're going to get a t-shirt and a hat for $23.99. You're not going to find a better deal, and it's only for the real ones. So if you're a real one, that means you're subscribed. So subscribe if you want the deal. Go to chatsports.com/Giants hat combo. For me, when you talk about Sterling Shepard and the opportunity for him to make the Giants' final 53-man roster, it comes down to Sterling Shepard versus Jamison Crowder. We showed you that depth chart a second ago. I believe the Giants want either or. Maybe there's a world where we end up with both these guys on the roster, but I only think there's one roster spot available for a veteran slot receiver, and that's what Shepard and Crowder are at this point in their careers. The thing with Shepard is it just hasn't been about availability. The guy has played in just 10 games in the last 2 seasons, and if you date it back to the past 3 seasons, he's only played in 22 games. And if you talk about the last 4 seasons, he's only played in 32 games. So, as I like to say, the best ability is availability, and he just hasn't been that so far in the last 4 seasons. But he's a good football player, and he's a guy that I think could be one of the Giants' best wide receivers when he's actually on the football field. I mean, look at the 2020 season where he had 66 grabs for almost 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. I love Shepard, but man, you definitely got to think about the injury history when you're really rounding out this roster. And the guy and the foe he's going to be facing off with is Jamison Crowder. And when you look at their 2 stats side by side, Crowder has really been better over the last 4 seasons. Crowder did just play in 4 games this past year with the Buffalo Bills due to injuries, so you got some injury history with Crowder and Shepard. But Crowder hasn't had less than 50 receptions in between the 2019 and 2021 season. He also has 14 touchdowns in those 3 seasons combined, which clear Sterling Shepard. I think they're very similar, and I think the most healthy guy is probably going to make this roster. But I'll leave it up to you. You can sit in the seat of Joe Shane today. And when it comes down to roster cutdown date, and you got to decide who's going to make the roster and make that final roster spot at the wide receiver position, is it Sterling Shepard? Is it Jamison Crowder? Or do we live in a world where both of these guys make the roster? If you think it's Shep, type his initials SS. If you think the wily vet, Jamison Crowder, is going to be the guy, type JC. Or if you think both of the veteran slot receivers make it, type B. I'm interested to see what you guys say, so I'd appreciate it if you voted down below. As always, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in to New York Giants Now and making us a part of your busy, busy schedules. We appreciate it, because if we put content out and nobody watched it, we wouldn't do it. But since you guys do, we continue to put out content. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 29,000 subs.